From failed drug test to counterfeit money to baby Shane McMahon, we're talking about Survivor Series 1989. Mr. Mooney, how you doing today?
I am doing great, and it's amazing every time we move on to another one of these events, there's just so much behind the curtain, I should say, with these events, and this is what we're going to talk about is no exception.
No, and it's Survivor Series 1989, and this is the first Survivor Series to establish the 4-on-4 method. Before it was Strive to Survive, 5-on-5, and whew, I'll tell you what, nothing. No, if you like Survivor Series 87, 88, that's great. Those to me are so long. Mm-hmm. It's like watching an old black and white movie. This is too long. Yeah. This one established the 4-on-4. What do you prefer though? 5-on-5, 4-on-4? Do you like Survivor Series?
Yeah. And you know how we've talked about it before. I just always think when there's just so much happening in the ring, it kind of takes away from it. I certainly love tag teams and that, but I always felt that a lot of times it was just too much. And so I preferred having 4 on these teams, and it just made so you could really have kind of a vested interest, because I think they really did take care, here to try and pair people up that people could get behind. And I thought they were really clever putting these teams together with the names. So yeah, I was a fan, and I think if we did it too many times a year, it would get really old. But the fact that it was basically our Thanksgiving tradition. And it was something different, and a lot of people look forward to it.
Oh, 100%.
Like I said, it also gives you the chance to see some of these guys that didn't necessarily get to be on the big stage very often, too.
True. And I think Survivor Series at the time is when you have main event wrestlers all come together, teaming up to fight each other. When could you ever see that? The Royal Rumble, I guess, was the only established one. Yeah. But in reality, this is the only time you're going to see, holy shit, 8 wrestlers that are all in the ring together, and they're all my favorites fighting the bad guys. Like, that concept is outstanding. But when you watch these things 30 years later, you don't have that. I don't have that same connection that I did when I was a little child. So watching them, it's completely different. But I love the names. I will always, always love Survivor Series names. That's what makes it so special. The Dream Team versus the Enforcers, the King's Court versus the 4x4s, the Hulkamaniacs taking on the $1 Million Team, the Rude Brood,
that was my favorite.
Roddies. Try saying that 3 times fast. You won't be able to. And the Ultimate Warriors versus the Heenan family. So you have all of those names right there. I love them so much. And this intro of this Survivor Series is extra special because all the wrestlers tell you what they're thankful for before the show starts. Then you get the classic Vince McMahonisms. It's the Ultimate Warriors versus the Heenan family. He does supply that. But when are these re-recorded? I know you're not involved face to face with these, but when they're doing all these recordings all in a row of Roddy Piper saying he's thankful that he's not Ricky Rude and he kisses the camera, Hulk Hogan's thankful for Hulkamaniacs. When is this done? Day before, a week before, the day of?
Yeah, the day of. It's and they used to have these interview rooms that they would take around the country for these TV tapings, and they would assemble them. They were soundproof boxes, really, a really good sized boxes. They weren't little, and they would assemble, and they have a couple going, so you could get people in and out. And most of that stuff, unless they did something or were at the TV studio prior to that, had to be done then. And the way these events were set up then, they weren't 2-3 day events. It was in and out, or over a couple. Within a regional area there or something, and we do a TV taping with it. But, everything moved. You were at one place for one day. And so that's, it was just in and out. Boom, 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 boom. Guys would line up and, they did those like that. But, they wanted it to be good production quality. And that's the only way you could do it, because those giant booths were soundproof. So, and that's where we did all the event center interviews too. So they were very used to doing it. It was, that's just what you did when you showed up to TV. You were going to end up one of the boxes at some point.
Wow, the boxes.
Thank you. Okay, now we're gonna do. Yeah, here it is. You got to do your Thanksgiving. Howard B. He would sit there on the floor with his legs crossed, Indian style. And he'd have the big book there, and he would just go through the pages and tell the guy, "Okay, you've got this one to do," and so what you're thankful for was on that list.
Wow, I'm Dusty Rhodes. I'm thankful for my polka dots.
Sure you were. Well, in a sense, though, I mean, it did. It did do a lot for him, those polka dots. So Jody could sell anything, any gimmick.
Yeah, I do like the combo because they have team captains going. $1 Million Man. He's thankful for being rich and you're not. But when it gets to Rick Rude, he's iced my ravishing body. He does his little hip swerve, but then it flips right to Roddy Piper. And when he's like, I'm thankful that I'm not Ricky Rude. And he kisses the camera. It's so funny. Like whoever put those together, a brilliant. Warrior does this typical, which I love his Warrior isms when he's just screaming about, we're more thankful for today. It's the sacrifice of the Warriors.
Mere mortals. Yeah.
Mere mortals. Yeah, it's just so classic because that's what the Golden Era I think is all about, is these little moments, because this never happens again. They don't do what we're thankful for. Then you go to the classic Vince voiceovers, and these teams, I kind of want to break them down for a minute, because some of these combos I completely understand, but some of them, I'm sorry, why are these two split up? The big thing I want to talk about is why they're split up is the Hart Foundation. The Hart Foundation seemed to go through random moments of we are together in Survivor Series matches because we're a tag team. Sometimes we're taken back. Where was this going? What was the point of this? You have Warrior, Jim Neidhart, and the Rockers. That's that team. Bret Hart is on the 4x4s with Jim Duggan, Ronnie Garvin, and Hercules. Why split up the Hart Foundation so often and put them back together?
Well, I think the point of where Bret was in his career, we're talking, this is 89, that they realized that he was a very good singles talent too, that he was somebody that they knew that they could put in a situation as a solo out there as singles. And this was kind of also ways to test that in a sense, but everybody's so used to seeing these guys together and not just, in a match. Like we've seen some of these where you'd even pit, to the tag team against each other. We saw that with, Demolition. But I think that along these lines, though, is that, that Bret was an emerging star as a single. They saw that. And I think that this was just another opportunity to kind of lay the groundwork here that this was what the future was going to hold. And also, I don't know if they really knew what the stability of Jim Neidhart was going to be as they moved ahead there. So there was a lot happening, but it was, I don't think there was a tremendous amount of thought put into it. Just that, that he would decide, no, this would be a good pairing. Let's split these guys up and put them in different teams. I don't think that, that it was all this, there was never that deep of psychology of as far as that went. But I think that that at the time we saw Bret Hart really becoming who he would become as a singles competitor. Because
it's just so weird, because eventually the Hart Foundation win the tag team titles again. And then you get the year from now, we've already just covered this, Survivor Series 1990, they're on the same team again as tag team champions. To me, it's just, I have no idea why they do it. And Jim Neidhart randomly was on commentary around this time and in 91, trying some different things out for him. It's just, to me, it's always so bizarre. Why are we putting these people together? Because if you flop these people around, Bret Hart could have been on the team of Ultimate Warrior and Shawn Michaels. Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels teaming together. Oh, that would have been so beautiful. Though the dream team, Dusty Rhodes, Bruce Beefcake, the Red Rooster, and Tito Santana defeat the Enforcers, the Big Boss Man, Bad News Brown, Rick Martel, and the Honky Tonk Man. Now here, this team, Bad News Brown, is replacement. He's taking over for Akeem. And why Akeem misses 1990 Survivor Series? He leaves. Here, he's probably hurt a little bit. Like, why do you think Bad News Brown wasn't booked in general for this card? Like, why would him be a replacement?
Well, you got two things going on there. You know, Akeem was not happy with the kind of money he was making. I mean, he's actually come out and said that he was actually losing money to work for the WWE. You know, the thing with BNB is that I think that it was just, he was kind of erratic as far as, and his attitude, you know, I think he was always questioning things. And, you know, when you're always that, causing those, you know, issues, you know, like you don't need it. You've got a big lineup of other people that are just happy to be there, or who keep their mouths shut and just do what they've got to do. So I think he hurt himself in a lot of ways as far as other opportunities. And, you know, was another situation where they're kind of like, okay, let's help him here. Let's, you know, give him a little push here. But it just seemed like then there was always something. And I think that kind of what happened with him.
How do you think the Red Rooster was feeling about this time, about his decisions? You know, like the Bad News Brown. I love Bad News Brown, but Red Rooster, like, so you're gonna be a rooster? I'm cocky. No, you're actually going to be a human rooster, not the gobbledygooker version with the red streak. How do you think Terry Taylor around this time is feeling about being the Red Rooster? Because you were mentioning before, it gives some light to people who really don't get that shine that often. Red Rooster is on the shows, but he is not. He's not the reason people are buying tickets, unfortunately. I love you, Red Rooster. But what do you think he mentally is feeling? Like, how do I get out of this gimmick?
Yeah, or thinking like, how did this happen to me? It's kind of it's like one of those things where, you know, be careful what you wish for. Oh, I really want to get to the WWE. I'll do whatever I've got to do, and then you get handed a gimmick like that, and which I don't think anybody would argue that it was one of the worst ever.
Yes.
The way it was handled too, and he was made it was, you know, like a joke. And if people know about Terry Taylor, I mean, he was really a great hand, as they say. He was a great performer, and had done really well in other places and territories. And so yeah, I mean, that was one of those things that, you know, you had Dusty Rhodes, who was able to take polka dots and get him over. But I don't know how, when you've got to go around, you know, doing this gimmick with the red mohawk, how do you ever get past that? It's, you know, people are laughing at you from, you know, that's your finishing move. Like you're going to strut, you know, like, oh man, I felt for him, and I did. And, you know, all the encounters and every time I worked with him, he was a great guy. You could tell he had a real good wrestling sense about him, as he, you know, did a lot before and beyond that, you know, working for other organizations backstage. So it's too bad, because he was a really good, he was great in the ring. But I don't know how anybody would have overcome that. And it makes you realize why Mark Calloway was, you know, frightened to death that when he saw the gobbledygooker and he was coming in,
the Eggman.
Yeah, like that, you know, people think that he was making a joke, but that was real anxiety, because he's thinking, I'm going to get there and then they're going to kill me and I never recover. And what do people to this day that, you know, that gimmick, when you hear the name Terry Taylor, what do you think of? And it's too bad, because there was so much more. There's so much more to that guy, what he did in the ring, and that forever stained him. You know, that was definitely a rotten egg. I mean, there's no question about it. But, yeah, and he did his best, but I don't know. I don't think there was a professional wrestler alive that could have done something with that, especially the way it was presented.
Maybe like as a kid, you could be interested in this. Like, oh, Daddy, it's so funny. If you were 5, maybe 4, still in the womb, maybe I think you would like it, maybe, because it's funny, because recently I was reading some comments people wrote to us about our Survivor Series 1990 podcast, and they were like, me and my friends hated Tugboat. That's what they were saying in the comments. They were young enough to just hate Tugboat, and thinking to myself, Red Rooster, I think, lands in the moment of you're too much of the thing you're supposed to be pretending to be. You're a human Tugboat. You look like a person who their mother was a rooster, their father was a human. They got together and they made you. That's what the Red Rooster looks like to me. And maybe too much, but honestly, I didn't really mind him that much. Had a good run with Bobby Heenan. He was part of the Heenan family for a little while as a heel. So, well, maybe.
I know, maybe. But I don't know how you ever even put that over as a babyface or a heel. It just didn't. It was just the whole thing about it just was so absurd and cartoonish. And you mentioned Tugboat, Fred doing Tugboat, and that was kind of cartoonish too. I think that was, we were very family friendly then, and the whole thing with the horn, and kids loved it. Now that was different then because he could be kind of this lovable character, but he was able to overcome that with when he became Typhoon. I mean, he became kind of this fierce wrestler again. And I think a lot of people kind of were able to get past Tugboat, which I was kind of astounding to be able to go from that to, beyond. The same thing. It kind of works. For you? No, never did. And I don't know for anyone that have ever really spoken fondly of that. But
I will.
The point is, like, you see the guys, I guess you'd say, recovering from gimmicks. I think in a sense that, like with Barry Darsow, that, I was watching some of the match with him, and I just remember what a great, period that was for him in his career, because he was really good at that. They came off as this destruction machine, and then to go from there to, Repo Man. And I know that he had other gimmicks where he was like golfer. They had him like in knickers but I think that if anybody remembers, thinks of Barry Darsow, you think of Demolition. They got the demo pod now. That just shows you that, you get you thank God in your career that you are remembered for for a gimmick, and it's for a good reason. So
true.
And that's the nature of the business. You just look at somebody, one of your favorite wrestlers' bio, and he's got. Yes, that's another. Yes, that's
how did the impersonator Elvis get over, but a man who's a rooster doesn't get over? Is it's sometimes baffling to me.
Well, I don't know between the two of those, because how Dwayne pulled that one off tremendously.
Oh, I thought he did a great job.
Yeah, and how, there was a lot to love about that character too, because everybody loved Elvis, and he was a bad Elvis. Couldn't play the guitar.
How dare you? How dare you?
Yeah, but and he was a tremendous heel. So as like a chicken shit heel, as they say, and had a tremendous career with it. So they don't all have to be kind of self-explanatory in a sense, that because a lot that you would think work don't, and then others that it has to be the right person and right gimmick, and the two of them have to work together. And a lot of times you have no idea. Not very often when you, like we say with the Undertaker, that was when you heard about it, you're like, oh yeah, that's gonna go.
True.
But other ones, you never know. Guys have had tremendous gimmicks and blown it because they just couldn't pull it off.
Well, this whole match too, if you look at it, Dusty Rhodes, the common man, Bruce Beefcake, he's a barber. He pulled that off, I thought. Red Rooster, he's a rooster. Tito Santana, I wouldn't really call. He doesn't have a gimmick yet. He's just
Matador, yeah.
He's not the Matador yet. He's currently still wearing Strike Force gear. But then you have Big Boss Man, obviously police officer. Bad News Brown, he raises possums in Harlem. Rick Martel, he's a model. In Honky Tonk Man, he's Elvis. So, not a bad gimmick match. I think everyone's bringing it to the table.
Well, it's funny
here.
You look back, Steve. But you look back now and you just rattled these off. Can you imagine trying to have stuff like that today?
No.
and that, that the way we did it back then was really, it was pretty much, it was over the top, but it was a different focus. As I said, that we were very much family oriented, and a lot of that was for kids. Hulkamania was certainly built around the young Hulkamaniacs, and so it was a different time for sure. But you imagine trying to pull some of those gimmicks off today, what people would, how they would be received.
Yeah, I don't think, what, I'll be honest, out of this whole bunch, I think the Honky Tonk Man gimmick as Elvis would get over. People would just think it's funny and make TikToks dressed as Elvis.
Yeah, but it'd be very short-lived.
And I think the Red Rooster, honestly, would be fine, because everyone would do, again, I'll bring up doing the strut just to make videos of you doing the strut. I think that would get over. The rest, I don't think so. Though
you couldn't make a career out of it. There's no way.
No. Dusty Rhodes and Beefcake win the match. After the match, Big Boss Man handcuffs Dusty Rhodes, beats the crap out of him, and then Brutus comes in with his hedge clippers, scissors, to save the day. Yep. Though after this is where Sean Mooney pops up. I watched this event last night, and you show up right there. You're not in your usual position backstage, blue lockers. You are at the curtain where they just came out. They open the curtain. There you are. Big Boss Man shows up with Slick, and you start asking him questions. He yells at you. It's so funny. You're like, Big Boss Man, what do you think? He's like, shut up. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm so sorry. What was Ray Trailer like working with? Like, do you have any great stories that no one's heard? Because you told me a story about like you and Texas Tornado in the warehouse talking to fans. Do you have a Big Boss Man story that no one's heard? Because Big Boss Man, honestly, I'll be 100% honest. He's what got me into wrestling. I saw him on television as a kid. I saw, what is this? He's a police officer. He's beating people up. I'm in. That's who got me into wrestling. So for you, do you got any good Big Boss Man stories?
Well, I don't have any like particular, incidents, but I can just tell you about him as a person. He really, he came off as this really, really intense guy who, totally sold that gimmick, because he had experience and could be a total badass. But he was one of the sweetest people, one of the nicest guys in the world. I loved working with Bubba, as we called him then, because he was just so good. I remember one time though that he was swinging like we're doing, he had that nightstick and he was really good with it, the doing that, bing, 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 bing. And I remember one time that it was like a little bit off, and he smacked himself in the elbow. And you could tell it like, you hit that funny bone part of your arm, and it kind of goes, and he had to do this promo, and you could, like when he was doing it, and you could kind of hear it was like a, like hitting that bone, you could hear it. And he just kept going, but you could tell, man, like tears welling up in his eyes. That it was just, I don't think he missed much, but and that was a real stick. It wasn't, this rubber stick that sometimes when they bring these things out and they look very realistic, but then they bend when they're not supposed to, really, when you hit somebody. And so he wouldn't go with that, and that was the real deal. But he could, he could swing that thing like nunchucks, put it back, back and forth. You'd see it many times in doing the interviews, but that time, one time that he took a little shot, man. I'm thinking, and he was like, man, after he was like, but I loved working with him, though. He was really one of the nicest people ever. And, and I was so happy for him that he was really over, and wherever they put him, that he was babyface. I think he was a better heel, and I'm sure he would agree with that, and loved being the heel more than anything else. But as far as working with him and doing interviews with him, and he was so good. He was one of my favorites. He really was. I loved working with him.
You're right about that, though, that you could put that guy anywhere. Like there's a list of people. I think he's one of them. Hacksaw Jim Duggan's another. Jake the Snake. It's probably another list. But those are the guys. It didn't matter what storylines, where you put them, they were over. It didn't matter if they were fighting the lowest guy on the card or the top guy. When they came out, people reacted and reacted and not like, oh, I guess he's still popular. No, like they were all in on Cobb County, Georgia, Big Boss Man, baby. Like that. One of the best.
Well, and a couple other things about him too is that when he got there, he struggled as far as cutting promos. He did, and he really worked at it and got really good. But initially there, I remember, and there weren't too many times. I've always said I don't remember all these times. I know there were a few, and especially when new guys would come in, where they would struggle and have to do retake. And Boss Man had trouble initially because he wasn't used to doing a ton of them, especially with the intensity that we did them. And a lot of times with these guys would get there and they were used to having a stick man there with them doing the interviews. Well, all of these for the event center, it was just you. And so, if you have done that, then you know what I'm talking about. When you've got somebody kind of feeding you questions and then they kind of tell when you're running out or you're losing your train of thought and they can come in. But when you're doing those promos, and they would be, try it sometime, top of mind for a minute doing this. And there's a lot of people can, but it's not easy. And so a lot of these guys had to adjust to that coming in. The other thing about Boss Man is that, he was a really big guy. And would go I'm close to 300, maybe more. And he could move. He was another one of those guys, those big guys, and really flexible. I think he could do the splits. He was really, he could do a lot in the ring. Just look at some of the things that he did. And I was always just amazed that you could carry that much around and then still be able to move in the ring. And, the 3-4 minutes in there going all out even blows you up. So these guys had to be in decent shape to do it. They knew how to pace themselves, but at the same time, man, it was not easy. And especially when you're that big of a person, that big of a human. And so I had all kinds of respect for him because, always where he was supposed to be, everything he needed to do in the ring, and worked his ass off to do good promos, and a nice guy all the way around. So he was definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's 100%. Again, one of my favorites too, because again, I said he is the guy that got me into professional wrestling. When you used to have a clicker and you had to go through the TV like this, and you would stumble upon things, and you're curious, what's this image I see? And it's a police officer beating people up with a billy club. Well, count me in. I don't know if that says about me, but I don't know if that says about me as a person. But either way, it got me into the business, and I still love it. And here we are talking with Sean Mooney about Survivor Series 1989. Who would think this would happen? But next up, though,
well, Steve, before we move on, though, and because you mentioned this, that he was one of your favorites, and I like to think that when people listen to this and they have favorites, and at least I give my perspective on it, it's that kind of thing when you meet a professional athlete and you worship them and just think that they've got to be the greatest person in the world. And I worked with Major League Baseball for a number of years and met all kinds of Hall of Famers working on shows there. And I can't tell you how many times you'd meet one of these guys who you grew up and, just admiring everything. And they were just jerks, God, I wish I wouldn't have met him, and it's certainly true with wrestlers too. And so I hope that when I tell, at least from my perspective, the people that, like you said, love the Big Boss Man, well, you should have, because he was a good person too. And there weren't many, as we've discussed over many of these shows we've done. There weren't a lot of people that were, you didn't like working with or just weren't, but there were some that were, but for the majority, like were great people, but there were also those that just kind of stood above the rest to me. So,
well, I'm glad to hear that he was actually a good person and not a piece of shit, like I'm guessing half the people are on this card.
All right, that's too much.
That's what you said. I'm just repeating what you said.
I didn't say half. I said a majority of them were good people. I just said there was lower. There were people. There were those, and
51% of them. 51%.
We'll break the. We'll make a sheet someday. We'll do it.
Excel and get it out. Who's a piece of shit and who's not a piece of shit. I like it. Next up, it's the King's Court.
I can just see your thumbnail now too. Sean Mooney tells who's a piece of shit and who isn't in the WWE.
Hold on. Well, I see a lot when let me tell you something.
I gave him an idea. Stop.
When I see you do interviews and then I see the titles of those interviews, I'm like, does he know what they wrote as a headline or a thumbnail? Ultimate Warrior is a piece of shit. That's what Sean Mooney said. And then it's like, oh, did he? And then you look at it like, I don't think he said that, but okay, whatever. That's the internet. Moving on, King's Court. It's Randy Savage, Macho King. The Canadian Earthquake. He's not Earthquake yet. He's still from Canada. Dino Bravo and Greg the Hammer Valentine with Jimmy Hart and Queen Sherry. They defeat the 4x4s. It's Jim Duggan. It's Bret Hart. It's Ronnie Garvin. It's Hercules. My favorite thing about this match, before we get into the controversy around it, is before this, they get interviewed, the 4x4s, that is, and they all have 2x4s. Each one of the members, Bret Hart has one, Ronnie Garvin. I think that's just fun. Like, we're a team. And they even leave after the interview, going, holding the 2x4s. It's just a nice touch of teamwork. I don't know. I like that little spice on top for them. But the Canadian Earthquake is not originally on the card. It's supposed to be the Widowmaker, Barry Windham. Now, we have talked about wrestlers coming over from other companies, Ric Flair, Texas Tornado, Legion of Doom, Dusty Rhodes. Barry Windham, when you're in the company and you hear Barry Windham's coming, what are your thoughts? And what's the thought, I guess, of the locker room and the backstage feeling? Because Barry Windham at this time, very established in NWA, big time talent. So what was it like for him coming in?
Oh, man. Very excited. People were, he had a reputation of being great. I mean, and all you had to do was see him in action, but also one of those guys that had a lot of, charisma. I mean, he had an air about him. So I think that, that was a good get, as they say. And especially, anytime they could pilfer from an organization like that, it was a big win for Vince. So yeah, people were very excited about having Barry Windham, especially the legacy, that went with him.
And then the Widowmaker gimmick, obviously, he's killing men. So Dusty Rhodes came in. He was already the common man, but he's wearing polka dots. Road Warriors can't come in like that because Vince wants to own the IP. Legion of Doom, Texas Tornado, Kerry Von Erich, so on and so forth. Why do you think, what's the Widowmaker? We're talking about Red Rooster earlier. We're talking about police officers, gimmicks, the Widowmaker. Do you think that was the right choice, or maybe we could have done something else possibly?
I felt, and they didn't really do this because you had to have a gimmick, but he was one of those guys that didn't need one, to at least the way I felt. And so, and it's kind of a weird thing, like you said, a Widowmaker, but you think of a Widowmaker, it's like a woman,
Are you a spider? Maybe?
Yeah. Yes. So, like a Black Widow or something, I don't know. It was, but then you think about it, dig a little deeper there. This guy's ending men's lives and making women widows, I guess. Right?
That's what I'm guessing. Yes. That's what I'm getting.
Okay. So then where do you go with it? What do you do with it? Do you have kind of an Undertaker theme to it? I don't know. I think it sounded good, but I just always felt like, where do you go with this?
True. If it's like you're pussy, you're not killing anybody. You're yelling at someone for not even killing somebody. But yeah, he was only there for a little bit too, which is strange because he comes in 89, late 89. He's out in October of 89. Now, this is the story. Let's talk about it. He quietly quits the WWF. He was undefeated for months. Again, originally supposed to be on the Macho King's team here. but apparently serious legal issues involve his father, Blackjack Mulligan, his brother Kendall, and they have they've been counterfeiting money, $500,000 in bogus 20s, and they both go to jail for 2 years. Now, I do have a quote from Jake the Snake Roberts here. He said, this is about Barry Windham's father. His dad and his brother were deeply in it. I'm sure he's having a hard time on the road dealing with that. It's a damn shame because Barry was such a great talent. Now, now this is going to be like kind of like, let's go inside Barry's brain. Do you think Barry left because of what was happening with his family? Because everyone in his family has baggage sometimes. Or do you feel like he left because he realized this is not going the way I want it to? And if I keep going as this Widowmaker character, barely making big television matches, I might have my value go down. So when I leave here to go, say, to the NWA again, am I going to be worth the money?
Well, I think there was a lot going on then, and I certainly wasn't in Barry Windham's mind, but you just have to look at the circumstances that were happening with this whole situation with his father and his brother. I mean, imagine that. And I think, saw an interview with him. I think he was saying that, that his parents were living with him at the time when all this went down. And then, of course, his brother was working. So he says, thank God that I wasn't home at the time that this bust happened, that this all happened. He was on the road with the WWF. And but that didn't, as he says, didn't really take the suspicion away from him. And he says that, like for the next decade, he was hounded by the IRS and the FBI and was audited every single year because they didn't want to know if there was some kind of connection with his money. So can imagine living with that. You've got your father and your brother are going to go to prison. You're implicated just through association, and that would make it awfully difficult. But at the same time, you've got to earn a living. So I don't know if it came down to Vince saying, there's just too much heat on you, and it's not, it's not good as far as the way this connect. It's out there. It was very public. Or whether the anxiety of it just got to him. I don't know, but I can't imagine that situation was easy to live with, and then try and work and perform at the same time when you've got people to take care of. So I really felt for him because that was I think he could have done really, really well. As Jake said, he was such a great talent, and then to have something like that happen, forever scarred him, I'm sure.
Yeah. As a fan, though, watching on television, it was so bizarre because you're seeing this guy, he's being established on Superstars and Wrestling Challenge. And they even, if you have the old magazines, he's in them, in the pictures because they would preview Survivor Series months in advance because they would, obviously they write the card way in advance. And you have pictures of Barry Windham in all the King Court photos. It just sucks that he didn't keep, I don't know. Maybe his family screwed it up. Maybe he didn't feel like he was going the right direction. Either way, good for him not getting involved with that shit because that's a lot of money, $500,000 in bogus 20s. I wouldn't even know where to begin to think of how do I make fake money or how do I get bogus money? I wouldn't even know where to begin there. So, but he's not on the card. So when you watch the opening of the Survivor Series and Vince McMahon says, "Earthquake," it's out of nowhere. Because he had to record the intro for Survivor Series by just yelling "earthquake." So, weird stuff. I love this match though, but at the same time, Randy Savage, the Canadian Earthquake, and Dino Bravo all win in here. I do want to talk about it because we'll probably never do a whole episode about him. Rugged Ronnie Garvin going from a retirement match with Greg Valentine to being a referee to being a timekeeper to being a ring announcer. Always for Greg the Hammer Valentine matches. I'll be honest, I think it's hilarious that Jack Tunney allowed this shit to happen. What were your thoughts on Rugged Ronnie and Greg Valentine's storyline? I loved it.
Yeah, no, I think it was it was a good matchup, but it was a mid-card matchup all the time. It was never, it never was to a level where you would, right? And it's a shame because, Ronnie Garvin was, huge. I mean, he was a headliner prior to his stint in the WWE, and just never happened for him. He was from the time he got there. The thing with the towel that he would come. That's like all I really remember, and it's a shame because I know, and I've gone back and looked at different matches that he had been involved in before, and that was another situation. I think that not necessarily booking him correctly for something, maybe that he could have had better runs. Really, like you said, all you really remember are those runs with Valentine. Well, he had other matches too, but then it got to the point where he was just doing jobs, and it was, you knew that it wasn't going to happen. And that's a real shame. The other part of it is that just some guys, it just didn't work for the WWF. It just didn't, for whatever reason. We can go on, but they just weren't right for that audience. And not that he was bad or had bad matches, he was still as good as he ever was in the ring, but you never felt that pop. You never felt that it was surging or but like you said, the Valentine they worked well together. It was a good run, but it just never really happened for him. And it's unfortunate because he was great.
Years later, when Randy Orton started doing the Orton stomp, I guess they call it now, but when he started doing it, I immediately jumped out of my seat and pointed, "Oh my God, he's doing the stomp, Rugged." So like, I remember him doing that stomp because it's so funny, not funny, but it's so intense to watch someone go around you, stomp on your arm, stomp on your elbow, stomp on your stomach, stomp on your knee, go around you, and you're selling like, and I love it. I honestly love rugged Ronnie Garvin for that, but you're right. He's only remembered for that storyline, but I think they should have fired Jack Tunney for constantly putting rugged Ronnie Garvin in situations that he's involved with Greg Valentine, timekeeper, special guest referee, announcer. Jack Tunney, dude, come on, man. Like, can you look at the books and go, who's wrestling and who's not? I'm disappointed in Jack. I'm sorry about that. I'm just disappointed in Jack about that, but
though, you really think Jack had anything to do with that?
Yeah, he's the one putting the matches together, Mooney.
Okay.
What the hell's my wrestling buddy? I need to hug something.
Yeah,
How dare you? How dare you even suggest that is not the case? You're so mean.
That he was just a mere figurehead? How dare me?
Yeah, he had real power. How dare you? One thing though, heading into this matchup, Bret Hart is injured. Now, if you watch Bret Hart's documentary, he talks about this. Less than a month before the Survivor Series, he's fighting Dino Bravo. He's walking the apron on the outside. Dino hits him so hard, he flies. He's done this a million times, he said, and he usually does the neck on the guardrail and falls over and pretends he's choking. Instead, he lands, he fractures his ribs, his sternum. He's got a bruised heart, and he wrestles. We've talked about it before. Bret Hart, man, this guy was dedicated. You're talking about someone who you hired. He would do anything for you. And what do you think about Bret Hart's dedication to Vince McMahon and the WWF around this time? Dude, the dude is hurt, and I get it. If you don't get paid, you wrestle it, you don't get paid. But Jesus, man, you don't have one injury. You have like 7.
Well, it was also... Steve, a code amongst them that you're an Iron Man. I think that a lot of that had to do with it. People would, know because these guys knew what getting hurt was all about. And when they would see a warrior, in a sense, I'm not talking the Ultimate Warrior, about a guy that would just, no matter what, always delivered and always answered the call. And Bret was one of those guys, and he wore that as a badge of honor. But he was seriously hurt. And, we've said it before, but, people, if you think what these guys do is, of course was scripted or whatever you want to say, but they were taking more punishment than NFL players. And they only had to do it. The NFL players only had to do it for once a week for, a very short period of time. These guys did it every freaking night. And so, you play hurt. they did. But that was a serious injury, and the fact that Brett even worked was pretty amazing. So a real testament to him, but need to give credit to all the other guys that played hurt and got back in that ring the next night, which, there are a lot of times you'd see these guys, they literally basically like crawl into the arena to work that night. And by the time they got in the ring, you couldn't tell. I mean, they just put it together for whatever they had to do, and then would crawl back to the locker room. So, ultimate respect for anybody who has the guts to step on the other side of those ropes.
True. Good point. It's just so crazy that over the time period we've been talking about Bret Hart, always the last time we talked, Survivor Series 1990, his brother died the day before, and then he still wrestles. Like this is just Jesus, man. Survivor Series is not kind to Bret Hart. Flash forward to Montreal, and this Survivor Series though has a moment where my mind jumped out for a second because we have a debut. It's Shane Stevens. It's Shane McMahon, a young 19-year-old Shane McMahon is a referee on the outside, escorting wrestlers after they've been eliminated. When did you first meet Shane McMahon?
Oh, when Shane, when I first got there, he was still in high school. Excuse me. And used to come to the studio all the time. So did Stephanie. They were just two kids. And, you could tell then that they had some special gifts, and we saw them later. Shane, my God, I still look at some of the stuff that he did, and I'm just blown away. And that's a whole other show to talk about his motivations for being willing to, be 3 stories up and toss his body onto a table. But to Vince's credit, and at that time when Shane had, let's see what it would have been. So he was pretty young then, but his dad wanted him to learn the business, and by learning the business, he had him learn it from the ground up, and that meant that he would spend his summers with the ring crew, where he would go and do everything that those guys did, sleeping on buses and doing setting up the ring every day, because he wanted him to understand every aspect of what went into running that company. Whether or not Vince at the time had the idea that it was Shane who was going to take over, I don't know. But I think he just, and he wanted him to, really appreciate the business for all the things, the great fortune that he had in his life. And so to his credit, and, Shane did it. And you could just tell that the way the guys treated him, it wasn't, necessarily, I mean, of course he was the boss's son, but I think that, that Shane was pretty humble. He didn't act like I'm privileged. He didn't pull the daddy card. And so you could see he had genuine friendships with these guys. So I had a lot of respect for him doing that he would go, and it wasn't an easy time. Those guys didn't have great accommodations, and that's the way he learned it. And then of course, then he went in and he worked at the tower, and they did the same thing with Stephanie. Stephanie didn't do ring crew. I never heard about that, but she learned the business as well. At some point, I think that Vince probably looked at Stephanie like, she's me. I mean, I think there's a lot more Stephanie, or a lot more Vince and Stephanie than in Shane. And they also inherited a great deal from their mom, who had, I love Linda McMahon. She was the one that I would sit across from the desk from when it came time to talk about, about a contract. But she was really a driving force. She wasn't Vince McMahon's wife. She was helping to run that company. And so they were quite a team. And as far as the kids go, they wanted them to, I'm sure they knew that they envisioned that at some point they were going to be working for this company, and they wanted them not only to appreciate it, but to see it from the ground up on how it all worked. And that was a situation like where they had Shane. Shane was the escort referee or whatever the heck he was, Shane Stevens that day. But it was all part of it was all part of the process of him learning the business.
Now, here's the bigger question for you. Are you surprised that Shane McMahon is no longer, so this is 2025 as we record this, are you surprised that Shane McMahon is not involved with the wrestling business? Stephanie, I guess, sort of is still, not as much as she once was. Her husband, Triple H, obviously, as we talk, is running creative, running the company. Are you surprised that Shane McMahon is just not involved at all anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, Shane wanted to make his own path. He wanted to blaze his own trail. And early on, he wanted to get into other businesses, tried to have his dad. I mean, I think at one point, he was trying to talk Vince into buying the UFC. There was a point where it was, you talk about a bargain basement prices then. If they would have, that probably would have changed his legacy. Been one of those that, do it outside the business. It was successful, but who knows what they would have done with it? Not what Dana White has done with it, but who knows? That's just out there. But I think that, Shane really wanted to be his own. And there are a lot of issues that I am no psychologist, but there is a lot going on between father and son. And I think that it's not surprising that you want the approval of your dad. And I think forever, that's what Shane has pursued. I saw it firsthand back then, or whatever, that, like Vince wasn't that guy who would necessarily be passing out the compliments. That's kind of an easy, crazy way to put it, where you just want that, reinforcement that I'm doing okay or whatever. And I don't think that, it was always just this, I want to be a part of I want him to approve of me. I want him to not just be elevated in the company. He wanted to prove it to him that, and I think that a lot of the stuff that he did early on in the ring and stuff was to show him, I can do this stuff. Vince always wanted to be in the ring. His father wouldn't let him. And, we've seen it. I mean, he certainly did it later, but the crazy stuff that Shane did, I remember watching, like, somebody stop him. I mean, he could have been a vegetable. With the angle with Kurt Angle and throwing him through the window. And you've heard that story where they were supposed to gimmick the window that he's going to throw him through, and they didn't, where it was the wrong panel or something.
Yep. And
he throws him through that thing like 3 times, and he lands on his head and his neck before it finally crashes. And I've heard that backstage people are like, make him stop. Tell him no. But or the other stuff of him climbing up, and you've seen it where he just falls, like I don't know how many feet, but that's death defying. And he did it again and again, and certainly not only proved himself to the boys, which I think is another part of it, to show him I'm not just daddy's boy. I can do everything you guys can do and beyond. So a lot happening there with Shane. I always really liked Shane. I thought and I haven't seen him in a very long time. I did get a chance to see Stephanie at WrestleMania, but I haven't seen Shane. But always just thought he was a great, loved him, got along with him really well. And everybody that I know that worked with him loved him. And I think that it was just it was a search for him. And I think probably it continues to this day that he wanted to find his own thing. He wanted to find his own success. And at some point maybe he will. Maybe there will be something that he finds in and it will be. You hear so many different things that he was maybe involved in AEW. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. But and he certainly didn't have to. He could have just been a rich kid, and that's just not part of his DNA, of course.
Yeah. Shane McMahon, the character, was always entertaining, especially during the Attitude Era and later on. It was always surprising to me that Stephanie
and Posse, I thought was great.
Oh, God. Pete Gast and Joey Abs and Rodney Mack. Come on.
Those were his true buds from Greenwich. That gimmick was a natural. It just you talk about organic. It was those guys were for reals.
Shane Stevens, though. Shane Stevens. God damn it. Give him a name. Don't give him McMahon. Give him Stevens. Yeah. That I was very surprised as we talk. Shane McMahon and Stephanie are not like the figureheads, because before that, you had Vince Sr. and it's just, you thought it would be a family business, but obviously in today's world, it's corporations buy up other companies. Let's move on though, because it's a match I really want to talk about. It's the Hulkamaniacs versus the $1 Million Team. You got Hulk Hogan. If this is like the perfect thing for a child, you have Hulk Hogan, you have Jake the Snake Roberts, and you have Demolition on one team. Dude, it's a dream. Versus $1 Million Man Zeus, because we are involved with the No Holds Barred movie at this time, and Powers of Pain. Now, there's so many questions about this match. The first one I want to ask you, though, is I've interviewed Jake the Snake before, and he mentioned this. So Jake has the snake. Obviously, he usually comes out with it. He holds it in the sky, or he puts it on someone, and everyone goes crazy. What a pop. The snake pop. That's Jake's. In this scenario, though, there's a discussion about bringing in a bigger snake, like some huge monstrosity that Demolition, Hogan, and Jake can all hold together, come down to the ring, holding this giant snake, hold it in the sky. And things get out of hand. The snake wrangler realizes that you can't just give a snake this large to all these strong men, but in a 20,000 person arena, what if it gets loose? Let's talk about that scenario. Did you hear about this giant snake idea, and if it was a good idea or not?
Yeah, I think on paper, it probably sounded pretty good. We'll just get a little bigger snake that 4 guys can handle. How tough can it be? There are these strong, beasts. And as Jake tells that story, that what really set him off was that it was going to be the Hulkster who was going to be in front holding this python's head. And then he was going to be part of this train that would bring this thing out. And as Jake tells the story that, if that happens, then I'm the snake guy. That's my gimmick. And if we come out and the Hulkster can handle this thing and we're just kind of behind him, then what do I do? Like, anybody can do this in the WWF. And so Jake's, thinking that this can't happen. It'll hurt me. So he like, what can we do? Well, Vince had said, I want the biggest, nastiest python you can get your hands on. And so he speaks with the handler, and if people have heard before, there was a guy that was the critter handler, but what he did with the snakes, he had the snakes, and he would bring these to the arena for Jake and check up on whatever the snake that he had taken on the road was doing and switch them out, and a different Damien. And he'd gotten on the phone with him and said, hey, this is what they want to do. And the guy's like, they can't do that. And Jake's like, I know, what are we going to do? And he says, Vince wants this giant snake. And the guy goes, he goes, that's what we'll do. He's like, what? He goes, I've got the snake. And so Jake's like, all right. So the story goes, they bring this crate to the arena, and Jake said, it's 5 by 5 feet, the crate. And you could, so they want to do a rehearsal where these guys, to see how they're going to be able to carry this snake out. And so, they literally have to, like, take the bolts out of this thing to take the lid off. And as Jake tells the story, the thing that when they get the thing loose, they don't just open it. The lid blows off. the snake comes out, and it's 27 feet long, and the head is bigger than Jake's head, he says. And all the guys are standing there, Demolition, the Hulkster, and Jake, and the handler gets, usually you're going to hold the snake is like this. He says that the trainer guy has got the snake in the headlock, and the thing picks him up and slams him on the ground. And the guys ran for their lives. He said this thing was gigantic. I mean, it was a giant serpent. And then they, try and get it back into the box, and the thing takes a dump. Now, I can tell you personally that because the other snakes had defecated before at an arena, it is like throw up in your mouth. I mean, like just disgusting. It's not like horse poop. It's not like, it's like nothing you've ever experienced. And as Jake would say, that stuff would, if you got on you, it stayed on you for days. And he said it took and it was a giant snake. So you could imagine how much python poop there was. And so, the guys have scattered. The thing shit all over the place, and then they get the thing back in the box. And they put and it's like, no more snake. Like that's not. And so, Jake goes and gets the other Damien, as you saw, that's out in the ring, and he's hitting that thing, trying to get it to get a little nasty. But Jake solved the problem, and he was forever the only one that would handle the python. But that's a great story.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
And I remember the commotion. My God, it was Steve. I mean, it was right out of the sci-fi movie. That snake was gigantic. You've seen videos where they pythons in the wild, and you keep thinking it's
like anacondas.
This was really, yes, absolutely. That's why this thing was. I mean, really, the body on that thing was. Yeah, everybody was very happy when they got that thing back in there and bolted in and get that thing the F out of here.
Oh my!
Those things, they always gave me the creeps anyway. I didn't want to go. I never wanted to go in there. I don't like snakes. That was it.
No.
But that was wild.
Wow, that's a great story. And
you can still smell it.
See the version, like when Jake talks about it, well, at least with me, he was just like, "Yep, Hogan wanted to hold a snake, so I got this giant snake, and we gave Hogan the head, like, all right, here you go, you hold it." And I was like,
right.
Let's not. This thing is bigger than my 24-inch pythons. I think it's going to eat me. Saying my prayers and taking my vitamins is not going to save me from this snake. But that Jayco seems to always have, as we've known before in the past, Jake and Hogan didn't 100% get along because just, when someone's a top dog, don't you also want to be the top dog? And it's hard to do that when the guy is, Hulk Hogan, especially around.
Well, you got to protect your gimmick. You got to protect your gimmick.
Yes.
Hulk's got enough. He's got enough.
Give him back that weird helmet with the fist on it. Give him that again,
Yeah. Oh boy.
That was a fun little gimmick. And we've talked about it at nauseum before, though. But
you always think, though, like with the helmet, you would have felt like he would have said to somebody, "Does this look stupid? Do I look?"
Yeah, like, you look great. You look great, Hulk. We're gonna sell it.
Awesome. Go out there, sell it. Yeah.
God damn it, those kids are gonna go to school wearing these helmets. Oh, you look at these fists.
Put a siren on it. Put a siren.
Oh God damn it. So how many do we sell, Vince? None. Zero. I bought them all. They're at my house. I'm wearing them. That's so freaking funny. We are in the heart of No Holds Barred, though, in this time. And after this match, they do a backstage moment where it's Hogan and Beefcake getting interviewed. But you get to interview the Macho King and Zeus because you're promoting, match, movie. And you can buy it on pay-per-view. We get to watch the match and the movie No Holds Barred. It's going to be a steel cage match between Macho King, Zeus versus Hogan and Beefcake. Now, you're interviewing Macho King and Zeus. Now, I've probably asked these questions all the time. They sound stupid. Is this live when you're asking them questions, or is this pre-taped after the matches? Because Zeus looks a little sweaty.
No, it was after. Yeah, it was live. Like I said, anytime you see one of those where it's post match, it's pretty much it's live because there's no other way to do it. You got to capture them where they looking the same. You can't have them completely. Like I said, you'd have issues with any kind of wardrobe they were wearing, or it's got to be sweaty. It's got to be, if they have paint, forget it. So yeah,
right.
Tiny was a little bit limited as far as conversation. Though it was in a sense mostly scripted for sure, especially when we're doing it that way. And then of course you've got Randy that, no matter what happens, it's going to be fine.
He was incredible at the way he's just in full Macho King gimmick at this time, and he's main eventing a lot of big matches, a lot of pay-per-views against Hogan, with Hogan when the Mega Powers were together. But the other big thing in this matchup is this combo we keep seeing all the time, and the story is always brought up: was Legion of Doom, a ripoff of Demolition? Well, I talked to a Warlord once, and he pretty much admitted, no, I think Powers of Pain was a ripoff. Not a ripoff, a version of Legion of Doom that Vince wanted. Where do you land on that? Who is the version that Vince wanted to be Legion of Doom? Is it Demolition or is it Powers of Pain?
Well, I think you've got, a combination there, and we, you need to be clear that, Legion of Doom, but it was really all about the Road Warriors, because that's who he wanted. That's, and it took him a while to get them there. And Demolition was definitely a version of that. I think they made it their own. Demolition, I think, was separate from who they are, but that was in response to not being able to have the Legion of Doom or Road Warriors in the WWE, and also Powers of Pain were also, there were all these similarities so they were part of that too. It was you look at them like the Warlord. Come on, that's definitely very hawkish. It was a combination, but in answer to your question, the real version was the original version that they came up with was Demolition.
Okay. Yeah. Because I always wondered, because it seems like each person has a different perspective on who was supposed to be the Road Warriors version in the WWE.
Yeah, and that turned out to be a win-win, Steve. Yeah. But that turned out to be a win-win because it wasn't like when LOD, when those guys arrived, Joe and Mike arrived, that like, oh gee, we have two of the same tag team. Demolition and LOD were still standalone. They could on their own. So it turned out to be a win-win, that Demolition was still very popular, and it was a great rivalry to have. So it all worked out. So it's good the way that started, because then WWE had their very own version, and they love that as far as merchandising goes and licensing. So there you go.
Yeah, the foam pads with the spikes, you buy those at the arenas, whatever. Those are pretty cool for Legion of Doom fans. Yeah, I always wanted to know your thoughts on the Demolition.
How many did you see in arenas? Yeah.
Oh my God, they were everywhere. You could not escape those. But Hulk Hogan is the sole survivor here, but he's not the main event of Survivor Series. This is kind of the beginning of getting Warrior ready to be the guy in 1990. So do you know if Hogan was upset about this, or he just gets to go home early? I guess I'm trying to say.
Well, I think that Hulk had a lot going on anyway. I don't know if he thought that this was going to continue for as far as his career, main part of his career. I don't know if he ever thought, I'll ever really leave it, but I think that he was hoping that he would turn this into what The Rock did, in a sense, where that's his main, main income was going to be in Hollywood. So the fact that he was still part of that whole mix and basically could come in and out whenever he wanted to because they needed him. I don't think at the time he had like a major problem with it, especially since the kind of event it was. And when all was said and done, who was standing in the ring when it was all over?
Yeah, there's just so much happening in this match. It just seems like so even, because usually when you see some of these matches, you look at me like, these guys could probably beat those guys. But when you think of Zeus, $1 Million Man, Powers of Pain versus Axe, Smash, Jake, and Hogan, you're finally seeing an even match of evil guys taking on an even match of these good guys, which I think is pretty interesting to see. But next up, though, it's Roddy's, say that 3 times fast, versus Rick Rude's team. Yeah, Rick Rude, Mr. Perfect, and the Fabulous Rougeaus versus Roddy Piper, Jimmy Snuka, and the Bushwhackers. Wow.
I like the way they put these teams together. Like I said, we've got a roster of what do we have, like 60 plus then. It's difficult to give everybody a little shine. And so I always love these events that they would be able to do that because everybody got in there. And you said everybody had their favorites. That was really cool about that period of time is that they really did. Everybody, that we would have these events where the superstar roster, you got to see everybody. And it also gave them a chance to see if they weren't noticing something about these guys, that they would get a chance to be out there. So, and as we mentioned at the top of this, that it was a lot of fun because it was clever. A lot of those names, as you mentioned, were really clever. So loved it.
I like the backstage promo before this matchup too, because it's Roddy Piper with the Bushwhackers with Jimmy Snuka, and they're all eating turkey carcasses because we are celebrating Thanksgiving. So it's just fun to see everyone getting into the full spirits of Thanksgiving here. Full spirits. I was enjoyed that. There's really nothing to talk about this match. Mr. Perfect is the sole survivor here, and that's no big stories coming out of that matchup at all. So good for Mr. Perfect. He was perfect that day. He did say before the show started what he was thankful for was for being perfect. So he did it here. All right, main event time. It's supposed to be the Ultimate Warriors versus the Heenan family. It's Ultimate Warrior, Jim Neidhart, and the Rockers taking on Andre the Giant, Haku, Arn Anderson, and Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard's not here. Bobby Heenan takes his place. And the big story out of this is, why is Tully Blanchard not here? Now, we never discussed this before on the show. We talked about other people coming into the company, the Brainbusters. What were your thoughts on Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard, half of the Four Horsemen coming into the WWE? Was this sort of thing to take down the Four Horsemen's momentum, maybe?
Well, I think, that certainly, anytime Vince loved being a disruptor. So, and anytime you could score somebody that was, very influential in another organization, Vince was going to jump at that chance. And of course, they were both known to be really, really good performers. So, it was a coup. The one thing though is, and we talked about this before, where you mentioned you think Hulk was, a little put out there, and this match to me didn't have a main event feel to me, other than the Warrior or something. But it just didn't. And I don't want to, I'm not taking away from the other guys that were involved in this, but if you look at that match with Hulk and Ted, to me that there was. A lot of stupid things happened in it, with the roughing up the ref and Zeus gets eliminated and all that whole. But I'm just saying, as far as a marquee goes, all right. That said, and we're talking about the Brainbusters, and they weren't at that point, and really never got the chance to, but really to get over, as far as they didn't meet anywhere near the success that they had in where they came from. So like I said, it just didn't feel to me like a main event. And then the fact that Tully gets booted kind of watered it down even more, and Bobby is slated as the fourth member of the team. Now, before we get into that, and just like, what the heck? folks, and I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that know this, but Bobby Heenan could work. That guy with what, took thousands of bumps during his career, and he was really good at it. He had that one move where you go up over and slide up onto the top rope and flip over. And at his age, and not in great shape, he had the belly but he would go in there, and man, he always took some serious bumps. So we need to say that, because I just had a lot of respect for Bobby, and the fact that, when he had the weasel suit and the stuff that he did with that, and took stuff from the Warrior. And wow. So with that said, but the fact that Tully wasn't there and that Bobby had to step in took something away from it too. So, he pins Marty Jannetty after the, with an easy pin because the guy softened him up. I don't know. But it just didn't have that feel to me. And it was made worse by the fact that, suddenly Tully's gone.
Yeah. Tully Blanchard failed a drug test, testing positive for cocaine. So Vince McMahon suspended him and then fired him before the pay-per-view. But you're right. Bobby Heenan took his spot that night. And I do agree with you. This does not have a main event feel, because in the past few matches, you've had very established mid-card wrestlers. Jim the Anvil Neidhart, nothing against him. He's one half of a tag team, and now he's kind of out here by himself. To me, that was not the version of like Jake's with Hogan, Beefcake's with Dusty. Yeah, you have, you have Hacksaw carrying the load by himself on that team. Like, there's a few people carrying the load, but a lot of these guys are established. But he does fail, Tully Blanchard, that is, his test. He's out. He wants to go back to WCW now, which is NWA. Him and Anderson were going to go back there anyways, apparently. They refused to hire him once the drug test was known. And Tully Blanchard's out of the main event wrestling business with WWF and WCW, NWA. Apparently, Blanchard said he was going to get $750,000 to go back to WCW. He does not get that. He does not get hired. He is done pretty much as a main event star. And to me, that's sad, because what a run with the Four Horsemen, a decent run here with Brainbusters. So I guess, is it strange that he failed a drug test when we have clearly known for years other wrestlers are on other drugs during this time frame? Is it shocking?
No, not shocking, because there was a lot of that going on. Tully claims that the only time that's all they were really testing for was cocaine, which I'm sorry, but you would have thought, okay, if you had that knowledge, what are you doing? They knew that they had these random drug tests out there. It's your livelihood. And then you're gambling with that for one night out. He professes to it and, talks about the damage that he did, but it's a real shame, because he was great in the ring, him and Arn, and they did a lot to help a lot of the guys in the WWE at that time. I know the Rockers talk about that, working with them, and that they learned so much, and other guys, other tag teams too. And and it wasn't just him getting fired from the WWE, and then he had worked this deal. It was supposedly a 3-year, $750,000 deal. They're going to get $250 a year, both him and Arn. And then once this happens, they're going to go back. Like, he thought, well, at least I got this. Well, they go, well, we don't want you either. And he said, initially he was very arrogant about it. Well, they need me, or they're going to, well, no. And I don't know if he ever went to them and said, look, I'll take a drug test every day if you want, but it fell apart. And not only did it kill him, but the story goes that Arn lost the deal too, because if they weren't a tag team, if they weren't a pair, then they weren't going to be as profitable to them. And he ended up getting, a little more than 150 a year, and lost a ton of money because of what happened to Tully. And in effect, not only just ruined his career, but his life in many ways. That, thank God he found the ministry, and, claims that was, the turning point in his life. But it's a shame that and it wasn't, I'm sure it wasn't the first night. It wasn't like he tried cocaine for the first time in his life or something. But the circumstances surrounding it were catastrophic. And it's too damn bad, because it's not, it wasn't even just that individual. And it's the same thing that we talked about with the Road Warriors. When Mike had his issues, it didn't just hurt Mike. It hurt Joe Laurinaitis too. I mean, it just killed the tag team. And when you can't work together, and you've got that magic in a bottle, together is why it works, then, you screw everybody. And it's too bad. It really is. It's a cautionary tale that has not been learned by many over the years, because we've seen it happen again in different circumstances. But, Tully was great. He was a great worker, and together with Arn, they did, tremendously well. And the Four Horsemen, who knows what, if they would have gotten back together, that whole thing, what kind of run they would have had. And, like you said, I had Mercedes to pay for. And that one night cost him everything.
Now there's so much there, because I think at one point I've noticed a lot of times where wrestlers say it's revealed they're not staying in the company, or it's revealed they are trying to figure out how to get out of their contracts, or revealed they want to leave. And then out of nowhere, drug tests start popping up. And I think Razor Ramon even told the story where he failed the drug test. Scott Hall failed the drug test before he was leaving for WCW. Well, they had him miss WrestleMania, so he didn't get a WrestleMania payday. And then they had him come back, lose, and he was out. In my brain, if I'm Vince and I find out that Tully's thinking about leaving and he's getting this great deal, I don't know if I'm Vince McMahon, the diabolical person I think he is out of nowhere, drug test. You're telling me other wrestlers weren't on cocaine or other things at this point in time?
Maybe, but that's never, been proven or brought, brought to light. But, well, it's kind of like one of those things that, you can say, well, he ambushed him with a drug test. Well, if you aren't doing it, then you got nothing to worry about.
Yes.
But you're right, though, in a sense, but you have a point there that, but at the same time, business, it's a dirty business, and, you're not you didn't help yourself. You made it easy. So I don't know. I don't think you can lay any blame at the feet of Vince McMahon in this one.
No. All right. That's a good point too. It's like saying, like, well,
how much does it matter to you? Like, how much does it matter what you do? How much does it matter? How many people wanted that spot and would have done anything for it? And whether it was an addiction or something, that's another, discussion. But man, there's a lot of stories like that, we wonder, like, what happened, man? You had it. It was in your hand. You worked so hard. Look where you came from. And then poof, it's gone.
Yeah. I think the road sometimes takes away things. We've talked about before, with your dreams and aspirations to being a star. Sometimes there are sacrifices along the way. How do you get up in the morning? How do you go to sleep at night? Well, maybe the drugs will get me up in the morning and the pills will put me to sleep at night. But when it becomes part of your everyday routine, it might ruin your life, because you don't realize that these things are illegal. And someone can drug test you. And you're right. It's not Vince McMahon's fault that Tully Blanchard did cocaine. It's Tully Blanchard's fault that he did cocaine. It's just shocking to me that other people who clearly were on drugs didn't get also pinched at this time. But I don't know. You just said it's a dirty business. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But it's just shocking that the Brainbusters are over here and Four Horsemen never get back together. This version get back together 1,000 different times with different people. But all in all, though, it's It's the business, man. It's the business. All in all, though, Survivor Series 89, I'll be honest, the backstage atmosphere is a lot more exciting than what's happening in the ring. I didn't want to start the show off with, I thought the show was boring, but I as we got to the end, I would like everyone to know that the greatest Survivor Series is still 1990 from the Golden Era. 89, a little slow, missing spot. It doesn't have the same like oomph to it. It doesn't have the same feeling. It's just, hey, it's a bunch of guys teaming up. And I have no problem with that, but it wasn't exciting to me. What were your thoughts on this before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think exactly. I told you I didn't feel the main event had that main event feel to it. I thought that the Hulkamaniacs match was the one that really everybody wanted to see. And Ted DiBiase was a great heel then. He was really at the top of his game. So that's my own personal opinion on it. But, and like I said, I always had issues with these kind of events. I looked at them more that, everybody got to see all your people. You got to see all the superstars, and everybody got a little chance to get on that stage. And in some cases, you got to see some good stuff happening in the ring. A lot of it wasn't. You got to figure out all these different ways to eliminate people, and some of them are really stupid. But that's what it was all about. And it was, I love the fact that it became a Thanksgiving tradition for people, no matter what the show was. But you got this great meal, and then you would get to know that for the next 2+ hours, you're going to be able to watch the WWF, and it was, and all the uncles and your cousins were there, and throwing each other off the couch, and I just thought that was a great event for that reason, not always for the matches that went along with it.
I agree. Again, it might be someone's favorite Survivor Series. It is not mine, but thank you so much for watching me and Mooney talk about it today right here on the Golden Era Podcast. I'm Seafall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.